So welcome everybody. My name is Frank Klesitz with Viral Marketing. I'm in my office today. No one else is in here, so I thought I'd change it up from coming at you all the time from my home office. And I'm with Anna Krueger today, who's a MAPS coach, and we're going to spend some time on how to hire an ISA, a calling assistant, to call your database. So this is very different. You have cold calling, sellers that don't know you from anyone else. With like appended phone numbers that you may or may not know that works, and you're calling strangers. That's one method of calling, which you might call an ISA. You also have predominantly inbound, following up with all the buyer leads, right? You have people opting online, you have Zillow and Realtor.com leads coming in, and you're following up, constantly, every single day, as much as you possibly can to find their motivation to set an appointment for you or yourself, or maybe if you have a team of agents. Totally different today. We're going to talk about calling your database, and specifically what I mean by your database, your past clients, all the people you've worked with your entire career, calling them up, but you not even calling them, someone else calling them, all right? Yeah. Someone that you hire, as well as your sphere, your centers of influence. I could expand that a little bit further into when you're a viral client. For our viral clients watching this, when you're sending out your educational videos, you get a list of all the people who opened the email and watched the video. And you can prioritize your phone call that way. But the reality is, do you really have time to do it? Do you really have time to make those calls? No. And I also say, Anna, before you get going here, you probably don't want to, because for many people, it depends kind of where on the spectrum you fall, but they'd probably rather make cold calls or buyer leads because the fear of rejection from them is less than calling like a past client that yells at you for like a bad transaction that you think about or something like that, right? But there's also others that would much rather call their past clients a sphere. So it just kind of depends upon your personality type, what you're comfortable with. Yeah. But it may seem strange. Okay, I could see hiring someone to cold call sellers. Yeah. I could hire someone to follow the buyer leads, but calling my friends, calling my family, calling my past clients, calling my sphere, hiring someone to do that, how does that actually even work? And that is what we're going to discuss today. So Anna, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Success stories. Do you have clients? Do you have agents that have actually hired someone to call their database? Tell me some stories that's actually working.
Yeah. So actually my team owner, and I'm not active on the phone anymore, I coach full time, but that's part of what I did. So at the Haro group, there was a period of time where I called Haro's sphere past client database, and it went great. I honestly had some hesitations, like how will they receive me? I'm not Haro. And I would just call and say, hey, Haro really cares about you, and he's been super busy. So he asked me to call on his behalf and check in and see how things are going for you. And it was great. And I found that they were very warm. Not everybody, right? But a lot of them were very open to talking to me. And then the value add that we would offer, there's a couple different things. Today, we're going to talk about how do you invite them to webinars, in this COVID world. But the value add that I used, and it's free and people loved it, is I would say, hey, Frank, you might not have thought about this, but because we work in real estate, we have connections all over the place for home-facing things. So if you need a tree guy, a plumber, an electrician, a contractor, call me, save my number in your phone as Anna Real Estate or Anna Realtor. Anytime you need something house-related, just call me. And people would be like, wow, I never thought about the fact that you would know people that you could refer to me, and they loved it. So I found great success. What I did find with it is if I call expired or FSBO, I would usually get a really fast appointment. Calling sphere and database, I had to go into it knowing this is going to pay off over the long term. I'm probably not going to call it and set 3 appointments all before noon when I'm calling this particular list, but it'll generate interest and build over time as I keep doing it.
Got it. So you were hired to call someone's database, and all those individuals didn't know who you were, but the conversation still went fine. Yeah. You give me like a script of how you opened that call. So, hi, hello.
Yeah. Hey, Frank, it's Anna calling you from the Haro group. Hey, I really appreciate you taking my phone call. I know I'm calling you kind of out of the blue, and you don't know me, but I work with Haro, and he's been busy, but you've been on his mind. And he asked me to reach out to you, just check in with you guys and see how things are going. And I'll pause there. I would usually customize it a bit because I could see the client notes. So I might say, I know you bought a house with us last year. How's the house going? What do you think now that you've lived there for a year? So the question of how's it going would usually be much more specific, like how is your new house going, or how are you loving the new place? Something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm loving it.
Really easy.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah.
Why are you calling me again?
Yeah, I was just calling to touch in. Hara wanted to know how you're doing and just see if you needed anything. So how's the new house treating you?
Great. I love it.
Good. What changes have you done, if any, since you bought the place?
We upgraded the kitchen.
Awesome. Nice. I love a nice upgraded kitchen. So, well, good. Well, I really just wanted to check in. This is a pretty quick call. Hara just wanted you to know he cares and was thinking of you, and he asked me to reach out. Before I go, real quick, a lot of people have not thought of this, but since we work in real estate, we know all kinds of people that could help you out with house projects. So you mentioned you redid your kitchen. If you have another project come up and you need a contractor or a plumber or an electrician, reach out to me. I'm happy to give you the name of someone that we know and trust. So just save my number in your phone as Anna Realtor. Call me anytime you need anything.
Got it.
Perfect. All right. Have a great day.
I would throw two more in there too for the viral clients watching this. What we show you here is saying, hey, Hara's teaching a seller workshop. You know, you probably have heard there's all these different ways to sell your home now. There's a gazillion different ways to slice this of how you want to sell. And we're teaching a workshop coming up. I'd like to invite you. I sent you an Eventbrite invite. Check it out. And then I invite you to register.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, and I think there's all kinds of things that you can do educational webinars on right now. You could do one on refinancing and maybe have a lender join you. And what's great about that is then you're tapping into their database as well. You could, first time home buyer, selling in the COVID world, what's that like? What are interests? I mean, you pay attention, everybody, to what are the common questions you're getting. And if you're getting that question a lot, that would be a good class to offer. It doesn't just have to be home buyer seminar, home seller seminar. There's a lot of things that you could talk about right now that would catch attention of your database.
I want to drive this home before we get into some more technicals, but this is not a big deal hiring somebody to call your relationships on your behalf. This is fairly normal, right, Anna?
Yeah, I would say it's a big deal in that you absolutely must make sure that you hire the right person. So it's not a big deal, just go find anybody to do it. You definitely want to make sure they're the right person. But as far as it being a common practice, yes, it's not like you're a weirdo if you have someone else calling your database for you. That's kind of the whole point of the inside sales position. Yeah. And I think people get in these boxes. I see this a lot as a coach that's focused on lead gen, lead conversion. Is people like, I hired an ISA, so they're calling FSBOs expired and circle. And it's like, well, really their job is to talk to humans and see if they have a real estate need. So open your mind a little bit. What humans need to be called to find out if they have a real estate need? And it's a funny way to ask the question, but when we word it that way, it's like it breaks the boxes that we're stuck thinking in. And it's like, okay, where is a human that likely has a real estate need that needs to be called? And it usually creates, oh yeah, my database, my sphere, all these people. But no, it's not weird. It's very normal, actually. Just make sure you hire the right person to do it.
Well, let's talk about that. So you probably have the type of personality that you could put on cold calling homeowners to find appointments for listings. You probably have the personality of the individual that's following up with the buyer leads. They're coming in with the LP mama scripts and all that, and the 10 days of pain, right? Tell me about the individual. What characteristics should someone look for someone that's going to call their database?
Yeah. And actually, I think a lot of the skills overlap, honestly, to all of them, because I think most ISAs that stay in the position long-term actually work a variety of leads. So it used to be, we have our outbound ISAs, we have our inbound ISAs, and then that's pretty much it. I'm seeing more lately a mixture where they do a little of both, and it's helping people stay in the role. But what I would say, if someone's calling my sphere especially, I'd want them to be polished. So meaning they know how to speak properly, right? The way that I do is probably the better way to put it. Like, can they mirror and match me? If they're calling my sphere, can they make themselves sound kind of like me because you're calling my friends and the people I know? But also, are they okay asking for the close? So they can't be too customer service oriented because they're going to feel bad asking for business. So they need to have a sales element. And that's where I see a lot of people fail with ISAs, no matter what lead source they're calling, is they go find customer service oriented people and they're not salespeople. Mm-hmm. And this is definitely a sales role. So you're going to want someone that can mirror and match kind of your style. That's what I mean when I say speak properly. That wasn't the best way to word it, but like they can match you. They're results oriented and they're not afraid of rejection. So they're the kind of person that they just keep going. They don't like, oh, someone hung up on me, I'm going to go cry for 12 hours. It's okay. It's part of the job. Next. That's what you're looking for.
One of the things that I recommend here for our clients at Viral is that, you can hire locally in your city by going to Indeed or using a service like Wise Hire or ZipRecruiter and putting up a position for, what would you title the position as,
Yeah, that's a great question. I've heard it called lots of things. Client concierge, inside sales agent. I wouldn't call myself inside sales agent to clients, but when you're advertising the role, if you call it an inside sales agent, people that have done the role before will identify and know what that is. Mm-hmm. So I think it's fine to call it inside sales agent in your ad. Client concierge inside. You could also put like director of client experience is another thing that I've seen. But I'm a big fan of attracting people to the role that know what it is. I have made some hires and then they got in the position and they were like, oh, I didn't know what this was. And in my mind, I explained it as clear as day.
Give that to me. Why don't you verbalize the job ad? What would someone write on the job ad right now for this individual?
Yeah, gosh, it's a long job ad. What I can say too, I have it posted in my Facebook group if anybody wants to check it out. It's ISA Mastermind Group and it's in the files section. But the short version, if I'm posting on Facebook, and I got this from Haro, my team owner, it just said, who do you know that's a rock star that's great with people? And they're going to have an excellent year next year because of who they are, not because of where they work.
Oh, this is a post on your personal Facebook.
On personal Facebook.
Okay, got it. So you can do that. But what about the job ad that you put on
the actual job description
Indeed or whatever it is?
Yeah. So it would be clear that this is a job that has a minimum call volume per day. I believe it's at least 40 contacts per day. So I would just spell it out, 40 contacts per day.
40 contacts a day. That's really high for eight hours of calling.
6 hours of calling.
So in 6 hours of calling, you see they speak to 40 people?
Yeah.
That's great.
I say if people aren't doing that, and I say this with love, guys, I am and was an ISA, so I can just shoot straight.
Yeah, that's valid. That's really good.
If you're not hitting 40 a day, I think you just have to look at what's distracting me from that. Because this is how I looked at it. Haro hired me to talk to people and bring in business and I'm working 8 hours a day. I count out 2 because we have team meetings and whatever else pops up. So let's say I have 6 hours calling. If I'm not able to talk to 40 people in 6 hours, what am I doing all day? Like, what am I doing with my time and my focus? Just what's happening to my day? So anyway, that's a whole different conversation, but
that's pretty good. Well, if you're calling the database, I'm assuming you have good phone numbers at least because they're in your list. You have a good number versus if you're cold calling sellers, most numbers aren't good because you're appending them from a third party.
Right. It could be. But, yeah.
Okay. So 40 contacts. That's great. So keep going on the job ad. Let me hear some other things we should say when we're advertising for the role.
Yeah. So first point of contact with potential clients. You're kind of like the incubator for the lead. So you're the person that talks to the lead until they're ready to come in and meet with an agent. So you're really the first person that they talk to and you.
For database.
This
is for a database hire. I'm not calling leads.
Okay. I guess I'll be honest with you.
You're used to calling for the buyer lead follow-up ad.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't know anyone that's only hired an ISA only to call database. So that's probably why my brain keeps going over here. But I think you could say, it wouldn't be that hard to create it, right? Like you're on the phone the majority of the day talking with people to keep the business in front of them,
Yeah.
But I'll be totally honest. I hope it's okay that I'm just totally honest on here.
So over here.
I would recommend hiring someone that isn't only database. Usually people have the most success when they call a mixture of things. I recently coached people that were only calling database leads and that's it. And it pays off, but it pays off over time. You don't usually see enormous turnover or leads coming from that are actually appointments until you've been doing it for several months. And so I find that if someone comes in and they're only calling database, they see very few results for quite a long time. So I usually find it's better to hire someone, and maybe you say the majority of what you're doing is calling database, but you're also going to handle some sign calls. We're going to have you do some outbound calls. Maybe a third of your day is doing other types of calls. So that's probably where the disconnect is I actually would support hiring someone.
So support it for a blended role with their existing ISA following up with buyer leads traditionally.
Right.
Also makes time to call the database.
Yeah, because here's the thing is the database, what am I doing to generate leads? right? Like how am I growing the database? So if I'm only thinking I'm only calling people we already have, unless we have an enormous database, I'm eventually going to run out of people to call. And I see that happen in coaching all the time. Just today, I had a coaching call with an agent. He's like, I have 385 left, and then I'm done cycling through the whole database. And he's only been doing it a few weeks. And it's a pretty large team, you know, so it's like if they're only database focused and you're only hiring someone that would do well with people that already know you and they're warm leads, they will run out and they're not actually growing your business in the sense of growing the database, except for maybe referrals they get.
Yeah.
So I would actually recommend hiring someone that can handle inbound and outbound and database follow-up, kind of a mixture. Even if you start them on database, they're probably eventually going to be calling other stuff.
And where can someone go to get that job ad again?
Go to the Facebook group called ISA Mastermind Group, and it's in the files section.
Beautiful. Thanks for that up. Pay rates around the country. How would you compensate this individual?
Yeah, so you want a base pay, and we see base pay range from $1,500 to $3,000 base. Truthfully, $1,500 is pretty low. You'd have to live in a pretty low cost area to get by with that and find a quality person. Normal I see is $2,000. That's the most common.
Just $12 an hour.
Yeah, and if you're in California, you're going to probably need to pay closer to the $3,000 base, right? So you got to kind of know where you live, and then the person would need to be licensed in order to earn commission. But the second part of their pay is commission when a closing happens. And that usually ranges between 5 to 10% is common. I don't ever see any over 10, and I don't see any less than 5. So somewhere in that range.
How do you manage and train this individual?
So that's a great question. I think as far as management, it's a lot of heavy training on the front end. I see a lot of people say, let's just get them on the phone and release them to go do their thing. And I firmly believe that if you invest heavy on the front end in training, this person is going to get up to speed a lot faster. They're going to feel better, which is going to make them more inclined to want to stay because they're actually seeing success. So I think it's heavy on the front end in training. That looks like you call them. So Frank, if I was training you and you were a new ISA, I would actually call you. We wouldn't role play in the same room. I'd want to mimic it as if you were an actual phone call, because that's what they're going to experience. And I would call you from the other room and say, hey, Frank, and I would go through pre-qualifying you just like I would want them to do. Or if they're calling database, I would call you and you would be a database lead. But basically, I, as the leader, am going to mimic exactly what I want you to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to show you by making you be the lead. Then I recommend doing a buyer consult with them as if they really are a buyer, and then doing a seller consult with them as if they really are a seller. A lot of ISAs tell me, I don't know where my job ends and their job begins. And every time, and I do mean every, I haven't seen an exception to this yet. Once they have their leader go through a buyer consult with them and a seller consult with them, they come back and say, I get it now. I know where my job ends and their job begins. And they're a lot more confident on the phone. And then obviously the training program. That's what I do all day, is I train ISAs, and I have one program for leaders on how to hire this person and train them themselves. Then I have a separate program for the actual ISA. So I recommend leverage. If you haven't hired this position before, it's smart to get leverage. It's smart to get help doing that. Lead gen, lead conversion is the most business critical activity we do. And please hear me, all roles are important. If we don't have a great transaction coordinator, or if we don't have a great buyer agent or listing agent, it's all just going to fall apart, right? Yet we don't need those roles if we don't have leads coming in and getting converted. So it's worth making sure you're training them on the front end, because it's the first domino in your business being successful.
Where can someone go to get that training to learn how to do this well with you?
Yeah, so there's 2 places. They take you to the same website ultimately, but you can go to isamapscoaching.com, which actually Viral runs that website for me. So thank you, Viral. isamapscoaching.com. Or people have trouble remembering that sometimes. So if you just go to annascoaching.com, it'll take you to the same place. So ISA Coaching, isamapscoaching.com, or annascoaching.com, and you'll see both of those programs.
Any success with hiring foreigners to do this as opposed to someone in the States?
So my experience has been, and I've asked as recently as 2 weeks ago, the Rainmakers I'm coaching, have any of you had success with overseas? And the overwhelming response is it's great for circle calling, which is I'm calling a neighborhood really just to see if I can find someone. They're not a warm lead.
Yeah.
I have heard success with them doing circle calling, and the consensus I've heard is everything else, just bring it in-house. That's a very common question.
What about hiring around the United States for the roles as opposed to, say, in your office or locally?
Yeah. I mean, I think right now we're learning people can work virtually. I'm pretty opinionated on this as well, and I think there's exceptions, but I actually was a virtual ISA in the United States. I lived in South Carolina, and I worked for a team in Virginia Beach for, I don't know, 5 years, something like that, in a different industry, but still inside sales. And I'll just tell you, as a motivated person that I consider myself to have a work ethic, my energy tanked big time. And when I found that when I was in person with the team, once I made that switch and got into real estate and got onto a team, my energy went way, way up. And it's in large part because the ISA, this is going to sound funny, but the ISA is selling a person. They're not selling the signature or hiring the team. So if I was setting an appointment for you, Frank, I would need to sell the idea that Frank is awesome. You absolutely should meet with him. He's the best person that can help you. Well, if I'm virtual, I don't know you as well. So I think it could work. You could find the unicorn that's like, I love working from home. It keeps my energy high. I can live 3 states away and set appointments for you all day long. I definitely think it can work, but you'd really have to make sure you keep them looped into the team, do a lot of, meetings like this, face-to-face with them, keep them engaged. You can't just hire them and let them do their thing and never really check in.
What tools would someone need to be effective at this? Any technology, phone systems? What technology would you recommend someone get in place when they're going to hire someone to make calls?
Yeah, I would say have 2 screens. That's one thing, because there's a lot of copy and paste when you're in one system and then you talk to somebody, you got to get them in your CRM. It sounds like such a simple thing, but I see ISAs lose so much time because they have 1 screen. So 2 screens will help. Also, a stand-up desk helps because your energy is higher when you're standing. Obviously, having a great CRM, and there's a lot of great ones out there. There's Brivity, there's Boomtown. If you're with KW Command is great. Sync. There's so many out there that you could choose from. And I would also say a really great headset, especially if they're in the office with others. Most ISAs tell me they're energized when they're in their office. I'm coaching a lot right now that are remote, and they're like, I can't wait to get back in the office. My energy is tanking. So when you're in the office, if you have a headset that is noise canceling, that will help a lot for your own sake to not be distracted by your teammates, but also for the leads listening to you. That will help.
What if someone doesn't have phone numbers for a contact? Where should someone go to find a phone number for individual? Any recommendations for that?
Yeah, it's actually funny. That question has been asked a ton in my Facebook group recently, and someone just posted today, can we just make this an FAQ, because it gets asked every day. Mm-hmm. I think partially it depends on your location, the data for the zip codes you're pulling, but Cole Realty is one that I hear of a lot. Melissa data is good if you're going to do circle calling and you want to find what neighborhoods are good. Melissa data can help you figure that out. Those are the first 2 that pop into mind. I could go look at the Facebook real quick and see what people are saying.
I'll give you guys one. Go check out Ivy Data.
Okay. Oh yeah, I've heard of that before.
Hmm?
I think from you, actually, one of the last times we did this.
Possibly. Yeah, we use it. It's great. You just type in the person's address and there it is.
Numbers. There you go. I'm going to write that down.
Ivy Data. Yep.
Ivy Data. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, it works just like Cole. It makes finding one phone number better.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Perfect.
Okay. For those of you watching on Facebook Live, I know there's a little bit of a delay, but we'll wrap this up here. If you have any questions, let us know. We got about 6 minutes left. John asks, when you say buyer consult and seller consultation, do you mean on the phone pre-qualifying questions prior to an actual appointment?
It's a great question. So this is my philosophy. This is what I coach to because I believe it's the best way. But I view it as this way. If we're hiring an ISA, let's train them to fully do everything before the agent sits down with them, because that's why they're there, right? They're your leverage so that the agent can just go on appointment. So let's train the ISA to fully do pre-qualification, everything before they come in. So when I say consult, what I actually mean is the sit-down meeting. So in my mind, an ISA calls the lead, they ask all the questions, what's your timeline? What kind of house are you looking for? There's a list of like 20 questions for both buyer or seller, depending. And then you end it with, great, let's go ahead and pick a time for you to meet with Frank. He is going to take great care of you. I go through the process of setting the appointment. That's all just phone call, lead gen, lead conversion in my mind. The actual consult is the actual meeting where we sit down and we go over, what is my house worth and what are you going to do to sell it? Or on the buyer side, we're setting up my search criteria and we're getting everything in place that I can go out and look at houses.
If someone's doing single line dialing, meaning just dialing or click to call, not triple line dialing.
Yeah, those are.
How many dials a day or contacts? What metrics would you expect if someone is using a regular phone?
Yeah.
Working for say 6 hours.
Yeah, I would say 40 contacts. Here's what I would say. I'm not one of those people. I'm not one to say everyone should just have this many contacts. I say when you're new, 40 contacts a day minimum for your first 90 days because you don't have a track record yet. So we got to start somewhere, and 40 is reasonable.
That's 40 people answering the phone.
Yeah.
And how many dials do you need to get that? What's your contact rate that you're seeing?
Yeah, so we usually see between a 12 and 30% pickup rate, depending on what sources we're calling. If I have less than a 12% pickup rate, that's not a great list. You know, if I have that today, I'm not going to count it out. But if I have that 3 days in a row, same list, below 12%.
Those are usually your cold calling lists where you pen the phone numbers from third party as opposed to they opted in with the number or your database.
Yeah, and there's a lot that we don't have time to talk about, but there's a voicemail strategy that when you leave the right kind of voicemail, most people have never had training on a voicemail ever. If you have had training on a voicemail strategy, you usually can get a 90% contact within 6 calls. So if people are out there thinking, how in the world would you talk to 40 people a day?
Oh, because the callbacks.
Right, you get callbacks if you're leaving the right kind of voicemail.
There we go. Okay.
I just had an agent today. We just trained on this last week. I gave him the voicemail strategy. And today he reported, he's like, I'm not even doing it 100% right. And I got 3 callbacks already. And one of them I set an appointment with. And the other 2 were like great nurturers.
And Anna, you cover that in your course.
I cover that in my course.
And where can someone go to get your course?
Yeah, ISA, mapscoaching.com, or just go to annascoaching.com. And I always post about it in my Facebook group. Just today I did a Facebook Live of like, here's when the next class is coming. So again, that Facebook group is ISA Mastermind Group.
Which team has the most number of ISAs you've ever heard of? Paying them $2, $3 grand a month?
Probably, I would say probably the Reynolds team is the immediate one, or the Loken group.
Lance Loken or Sarah?
Yeah.
How many do they have last time you heard?
Oh gosh, I think the Reynolds team has around 18 to 21, but they've been hiring. I haven't checked in on them in a little bit on their.
And those are W-2. That's all they're doing.
They're ISAs and they're full-time making calls.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the Loken group, I think, is around 16, 18, something like that as well.
In the office or virtual?
Well, right now they're virtual, but normally in the office.
Normally in the office. Got it. Yeah, because of the energy. Makes sense.
It makes such a huge difference. And I was a virtual ISA because my mom had cancer, so I kind of had to be. But the whole time I was a virtual ISA, I wanted to be in an office. But because of my life circumstances, virtual worked for me. But the whole time I did it, I was thinking, gosh, I miss being on a team. So yeah, we really find if you can be in-house, that's usually the best way to go. And I thought maybe that's just my opinion, but I started asking Rainmakers, what are you finding? I started asking ISAs, what do you prefer? And the overwhelming response is, I much prefer being with my team.
My goodness, if I had 18 ISAs, making 40 contacts a day, speaking to 720 people a day.
Yeah.
You're selling a lot of real estate.
Yeah. And I'll say this real quick. I want to finish the contacts conversation real fast. I usually tell people you don't have a track record, so 40 a day. And listen, if you don't have a lot of follow-ups yet, 40 a day is very attainable. What are you doing if you're not doing 40 a day? You're getting paid a base pay. Like, what are you doing if you're not getting 40 a day? What I say though is let's track your conversions. And after 90 days, we're going to customize it. So Frank, maybe
where talk time is brought in and the quality of the lead.
Yeah. What I ultimately care about is how many closings are you bringing me? That's what I care about. So maybe you've really paid attention to the Mastering Inside Sales course and you've mastered your scripts and you are so good, you actually only need to talk to 19 people a day. And because your appointments that you set actually show and then they actually sign and they actually close, you need to talk to 19 people a day to bring me the closings that we ask of you or require of you as a team. So I look at it like temporarily, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. It's 40 contacts a day your first 90 days. After that, we're going to customize it based on your conversions. If you haven't been paying attention to training, maybe you need 52 a day because we did the math and we saw 52 contacts. You set one, 50% of those show up. And so you're going to have to talk to a lot more people because your conversions aren't where they need to be. So we get into all that in training. My goal of that class is when you're in the class by the end of the 6-month program, you know how to think of your business lead. Like I've truly viewed it as I have a lead generation business within the Haro group. And so I need to fully own this. I need to understand my metrics. I need to know my conversions. I need to know all of these things. And we go deep into all that in the class.
And I know you have a hard stop. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, I wish I could stay longer, but thanks for having me. I always enjoy doing these.
You got it. You have a good day. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone else, everybody.
Bye, guys.